Auntie, back when you paid for my mother's funeral, I promised to take care of the Chapman family brothers for 5 years. Now there are only 5 days left until the term ends, and I will leave the Chapman household on time." Barbara pressed her lips together firmly, her resolve tinged with a hint of reluctance. Mrs. Chapman looked wistful. "What about your marriage arrangement with Evan?" Barbara interrupted her. "Auntie, you know Evan has a white moonlight in his heart. Now that she's returned, it's time for me to disappear. I'm very fond of you, but when it comes to matters of the heart, they truly can't be forced. That boy simply lacks the fortune to deserve you." Mrs. Chapman patted her shoulder. "You have repaid the favor you owed me. You are free to leave if you wish," Mrs. Chapman said, shaking her head as she walked away. As the director, she stayed in the military camp year-round and had no time to look after her 2 sons. It was always Barbara who took meticulous care of the Chapman brothers. They treated her well, but ever since Callista returned, Barbara had become an object of disdain. Today, Callista was hit and injured while out, and had to be hospitalized. The 2 brothers insisted it was Barbara who drove her out. No matter how much she explained, it was useless. Barbara rushed to the hospital. The moment she pushed open the ward door, Clay slapped her, sending her crashing into the wall. Clay was furious, looking at her as if she were an unforgivable sinner. "Barbara, you despicable villain, how dare you take advantage of my brother and me being away to drive Callista out of the house, causing her to get hit by a car and injured." Barbara swallowed the metallic taste of blood in her throat and looked at Evan sitting by the bed, saying, "I didn't drive her away, she left on her own." The frail Callista on the hospital bed weakly protested. "Clay, why are you so harsh to your sister-in-law? Be careful, or your big brother will teach you a lesson." Clay hurried back to the hospital bed to show his loyalty. "Callista, don't misunderstand, you're the only woman my brother loves. As for Barbara, she's just the nanny our mother left for us brothers. Right, big bro?" After saying that, he disdainfully glanced at Barbara. "A pheasant is just a pheasant. How can it compare to a phoenix?" Barbara looked at Evan. That military-uniformed figure didn't say a word, but his tightly clenched profile revealed his anger. Barbara scoffed at the faint glimmer of hope in her heart. From the very first day she arrived at the Chapman household, she had known that the person Evan loved was Callista. Later, Callista went abroad for further studies on a government scholarship, disappearing without a trace, leaving behind a heartbroken and desperate Evan who waited for her for 3 long years. Later, Mrs. Chapman brought her back. Over the past 5 years, Barbara had devoted herself to taking care of the 2 Chapman brothers, not only raising Clay until he turned 18 but also helping Evan gradually emerge from the shadow of Callista's departure, steadily advancing in his career to his current rank as a 2nd lieutenant. In the 4th year since Barbara came to the Chapman household, Evan proposed to her. They held a simple wedding, but they still haven't registered their marriage to this day. Every time Barbara brings it up, Evan impatiently says the paperwork hasn't been approved yet, but Barbara knows he never even submitted the marriage application. On the day she accepted his proposal, Evan got completely drunk, held her in his arms and cried out, "Callista, I'm sorry." Even Clay cried loudly all night in the next room. "I told you, as long as you behave yourself, you will always be the lieutenant's wife." Evan suddenly spoke up, interrupting Barbara's memories. His eyes were gloomy, as if brewing a thunderstorm. "But why must you target Callista? If Callista were really harmed, would your life be enough to pay for it?" "Exactly, your worthless life. Who would want it?" Clay chimed in. Barbara watched the 2 brothers, both deeply devoted to the same woman, without being moved in the slightest. Back then, to repay Mrs. Chapman for burying her mother, she had signed a 5-year contract, doing everything possible to meet their every demand. Now, with only 5 days left on the contract, Callista had returned. She should also know better than to refuse their last request and leave on her own. Evan saw Barbara remain unmoved, and for some reason, he felt a wave of irritation. "Go home and clean up the master bedroom. Callista will stay at our place after she's discharged from the hospital until she recovers." Clay's tone was even more domineering. "You won't disagree, will you? Don't think that just because we had a wedding banquet, you're the lady of the Chapman family. Don't forget. That's my brother's house." Evan has an assigned dormitory in the military camp. While the old house of the Chapman family only has 2 bedrooms and a woodshed, they let Callista stay in the master bedroom, and Barbara had to move to the woodshed. Barbara lowered her eyes, feeling very calm, as if where she lived was of little importance to her. "I have no objections, since it's only for 5 more days anyway." "What 5 days?" Evan watched Barbara's retreating figure. Feeling an inexplicable emptiness in his heart, he shouted a warning. "Don't try any tricks to bully Callista. or I'll withdraw the marriage application." Seeing Barbara's figure pause for a moment, he let out a scornful laugh. Barbara was madly in love with him, and now that she was about to get her wish and register their marriage, how could she possibly let go and leave? Before dawn the next day, Clay was already slapping the master bedroom door with loud cracks. "Barbara, get up quickly and cook. Callista is frail, so make some chicken soup." Just as he was growing increasingly impatient, Barbara emerged from the woodshed next door. Clay was taken aback, seeing only a single quilt in the pitch-black woodshed. He couldn't help but purse his lips. "Why didn't you move a bed in there? Are you trying to act pitiful to make my brother feel sorry for you? I'm warning you, stop causing trouble, no matter how much you pretend. You can't compare to Callista even by a finger." Barbara cast him a faint glance. You're right. Why don't you have your brother marry Callista and make her your sister-in-law then?" Clay choked, glaring. "Are you bragging that my brother married you? I'm going to tell him about your smug, petty face and have him divorce you. Wouldn't that be just perfect?" Barbara threw down these words and walked into the kitchen without looking back. There were still 4 days left on the contract. No matter how angry she was, she had to endure it. It was nearly noon when Evan drove Callista home. Callista had limited mobility, so one carefully helped her out of the car while the other busily assisted with the luggage. As he passed by Barbara, Evan paused and asked, "Is the meal ready?" Barbara hadn't even opened her mouth when Clay immediately said, "It's ready. All of it is what Callista's sister loves to eat. We also stewed hen soup to nourish her body." Evan showed a satisfied expression, and Callista also leaned against his chest with a blissful look, appearing just like a sweet young couple. At the dinner table, the two brothers were very attentive in serving food to Callista. "Callista, this shrimp meat is very fresh. Let me help you peel the shell." "Callista, you're not in good health, eat more meat." Barbara Clara quietly ate her meal when suddenly a piece of carrot was placed in her bowl. Callista looked at her with a grateful expression. "Barbara, thank you for cooking for me. I'll be troubling you to take care of me from now on." Barbara frowned. "What do you mean?" Evan cleared his throat lightly. "Callista has limited mobility. Please take good care of her during this time. Just help with cooking and changing her dressings. It's nothing too demanding." Barbara looked at Evan. "Am I a nanny?" Clay slammed the dining table. "What do you mean? Are you so unwilling to take care of a patient? If it weren't for my mother bringing you home back then, who knows which old bachelor you'd be married to by now?" "Clay," Evan called out coldly. Clay reluctantly shut his mouth. Evan turned to look at me. "I'm not discussing this with you. I'm informing you, understand?" Accustomed to giving orders in the military, his first reaction to Barbara's questioning was sheer annoyance. Callista looked at the Chapman brothers both standing on her side and couldn't help but secretly rejoice. "All right, don't make things difficult for Barbara anymore. I can take care of myself." Evan quickly comforted her. "It's fine. She has experience in taking care of people. You don't need to feel embarrassed. Barbara, go scoop a bowl of soup for Callista." Barbara twitched the corner of her mouth, turned around, and went into the kitchen to bring out a bowl of soup. The chicken soup had been simmering on the stove, and it was still steaming when it was brought to Callista. "Thank you, Barbara." Callista reached out to take it. In an instant, a startled cry was followed by the sound of shattered porcelain, and the golden broth splashed onto Callista's hand, stinging so much that her eyes immediately welled up with tears. "Barbara, what did I do wrong? Why did you throw soup on me?" Evan and Clay immediately gathered around Callista, looking with concern at the red marks on her hand. "Evan, I think it's better if I don't stay at your house anymore. This time it was hot soup being thrown at me. Next time will it be forcing me to drink pesticide? I'm scared." Callista burst into a flood of tears, her twisted version of events igniting a raging fury in the two brothers. Barbara watched this clumsy performance, finding it utterly ridiculous. She had no intention of explaining herself. After all, no matter what she said, the Chapman brothers would never believe her. The one they had ever loved and respected, from beginning to end, was Callista alone. Clay grabbed Barbara's arm. The 18-year-old's strength was already on par with a grown man's, his fingers digging into Barbara's flesh as if trying to crush her bones. "Barbara, you've always had it out for Callista, using every means to harm her. I'm sending you to the police station, you vicious woman." Evan looked coldly at Barbara. "I never thought you'd stoop so low out of jealousy. I was wrong about you. Get on your knees and apologize to Callista right now, or even I won't be able to protect you." After saying this, Evan yanked her to the ground. "Why should I apologize for something I didn't do?" Barbara endured the excruciating pain in her legs, stubbornly lifting her head to meet his gaze. "You," Clay was absolutely furious, directly lifting his foot to kick Barbara in the knee. "Keep being stubborn, and if anything happens to Callista, I won't let you off. Barbara's knees slammed straight onto the shattered porcelain fragments. The sharp pieces instantly pierced through the fabric and stabbed into her kneecaps, the pain so intense that her face immediately drained of all color. Evan looked at Barbara, who was trembling all over, without a trace of pity, still not going to apologize. Do you want to kneel outside the gate and let the entire compound see your vicious nature? The pain in her body had already exceeded the threshold, and Barbara's vision was repeatedly going black. She knew that if she didn't lower her head today, they would never let her off, but after 5 years of submission, she was no longer willing to compromise against her will. I will never apologize. Her eyes reddened as tears fell drop by drop onto the ground. Clay raised his hand to hit her but was stopped by Evan. If you refuse to apologize, kneel here. You can get up only when you realize your mistake. After saying this, he picked up Callista and rushed to the hospital together with Clay. After the door slammed shut, Barbara's barely supported body also collapsed to the ground. Porcelain shards cut her wrist, and amidst the overwhelming crimson, she gradually lost consciousness. The pungent smell of disinfectant pierced her nostrils. Barbara opened her eyes to a field of pure white. Am I dead? The nurse who was bandaging her wounds nearby said. Are you okay? You lost too much blood. If you had arrived an hour later, you would have died. Barbara, her mind was completely blank. May I ask who brought me here? Besides my brother, who else would you expect? Came Clay's sarcastic voice from the doorway. Barbara looked over and saw Evan standing at the door with a dark expression. His intimidating presence so overwhelming that even Clay didn't dare approach, making an excuse to slip away. As he stepped closer, Barbara's heart tightened again and again, her face full of vigilance. What else do you want to do? Evan gripped her chin, his voice icy as he asked, Barbara, are you so desperate to avoid admitting your mistake that you'd resort to playing the suicide card? Barbara frowned and turned her head away from his hand. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't know. Evan lifted her bandaged hand. The entire living room was practically flooded with your blood. Callista was so frightened her legs went weak, and he swallowed his words, unwilling to tell her how terrified and desperate he had felt when he saw her lying motionless. Barbara only then came to her senses, subtly withdrawing her hand without a trace. After your discharge tomorrow, you'll come live with me in the military family quarters. That way you won't see Callista and get any more dirty ideas. No need, Barbara refused coldly. I won't disturb you. As for Callista, tell her to endure 3 more days and not provoke me. Evan was stunned. How did you know our marriage application would be approved in 3 days? Barbara ultimately couldn't win against Evan and was taken back to the family quarters. This apartment was Evan's private space, with bookshelves filled with medals, certificates of merit, and a freshly polished photograph. It was a photo of Callista and Evan taken before she went abroad. The two stood very close. Evan's eyes, usually frozen like ice, were now filled with a spring-like warmth. Anyone who saw them would praise them as a perfect match. If Callista hadn't gone abroad, they would probably have a child by now. Barbara, what are you looking at? Evan approached. Frowned slightly when he saw the photo, then took it out and locked it in a drawer. Barbara tactfully averted her gaze. I'll sleep in the guest room. Why sleep in the secondary bedroom? Isn't the big bed in my room enough for you? Barbara twitched the corner of her mouth and said sincerely, Callista is back. It's not appropriate. Evan showed an impatient expression. Barbara, can't you be more sensible? Can't you speak without dragging Callista into it? Don't make me regret marrying you. Barbara closed her mouth and sat down on the sofa. Since Callista returned, she had grown increasingly haggard, her profile almost as thin as a sheet of paper. An inexplicable unease welled up in his heart. Evan recalled the day he took her to the hospital. Her knees were embedded with porcelain shards, her thighs scalded with large blisters, and the wound on her wrist kept bleeding incessantly. A sharp, tingling pain shot through his heart. When she first came to the Chapman household, Barbara was still a 16-year-old girl. After 5 years of hard work without complaint, had he neglected her too much, leading to her intense jealousy of Callista? He sighed and sat down next to Barbara, saying, Barbara, the reason Clay and I treat Callista so well is because a few months ago, she risked her life to save both of us from the fire. One should know how to be grateful. As my family member, you should treat Callista with even more respect and courtesy. Barbara's eyelashes trembled violently, as if the scene of the fire appeared before her eyes again. At that time, Evan was on vacation and took Clay to a restaurant to welcome Callista and treat her to a meal, but a fire broke out in the kitchen, trapping all 3 of them in the private room. Barbara arrived to find the place engulfed in flames. The firefighters only managed to rescue Callista in time. while Evan and Clay were still trapped inside the fire, their lives hanging in the balance. Barbara was so frantic that tears welled up in her eyes. Gritting her teeth, she doused herself with a bucket of cold water in the freezing weather and charged into the flames, forcibly dragging the two unconscious men out. She herself fell into a coma due to severe burns on her back and excessive smoke inhalation, lying in the hospital for 3 days and 3 nights before finally waking up. But when she rushed back home, Evan and Clay had no memory of her saving them. Wholeheartedly believing they owed their lives to Callista instead, she explained a few words, but the two brothers thought she was trying to steal the credit and called her shameless. Later, no one knew Callista what methods she used, but she found a few reporters to interview her about her thoughts on saving people. As a result, Evan and Clay became even more convinced that she was a scheming and ruthless woman. It was from that moment on that she fully realized that no matter how much she did for them, it would never be remembered, nor would they have any affection for her. In that case, why should she go out of her way to invite humiliation? After all, she had only saved them because of the contract. Barbara twitched the corner of her mouth and said calmly, "Okay." Her obedience surprised Evan a little. His heart softened, and he held Barbara's hand, saying, "Barbara, once the marriage certificate is ready in 2 days, let's go take a wedding photo. Didn't you used to love wedding dresses? I'll take you to pick out a dress when the time comes." Barbara, looking at his rare intimate gesture, she felt nothing but discomfort. You make the arrangements, let him do whatever he wanted. In 2 days, she definitely wouldn't show up at the photo studio. Neither of them noticed that outside the family quarters, Callista's figure flashed by. Her eyes swirling with malice born from jealousy, she went to the police station and completed the registration for purchasing sulfuric acid. After obtaining that small bottle of colorless liquid, Callista revealed a sinister smile. "Barbara, once your face is ruined, let's see how you'll seduce Evan." "Who is that person?" The officer handling the registration looked up, and upon seeing the man, quickly stood up and saluted. "Gabriel. That's the family member of Lieutenant Evan from our Southwest Military District." "Callista," the colleague next to him nudged him. "What nonsense are you talking, Mr. Evan's family member is Barbara." Gabriel was stunned, suddenly raising his eyes. "Who?" The young police officer was startled and stammered. "Barbara." "Gabriel, if you don't believe me, I'll find the documents to show you." Moments later, a manila envelope was handed to Gabriel. He tightly gripped those few pages of paper. His gaze scanning Barbara's face over and over again. Finally unable to contain his excitement, he quickly walked back to his office and made a phone call. "Hello, could you please connect me to the Security Bureau's Mr. Herman office?" Moments later, a dignified, deep voice sounded. "Gabriel, is this news about discovering a spy?" "Uncle, after all these years, we've finally found Barbara." Gabriel's hand holding the receiver trembled with excitement. The man on the other end of the line was both shocked and overjoyed, but years of professional habit made him suppress his excitement and confirm again. "Gabriel, are you sure it's my daughter Barbara?" Gabriel gazed deeply at the photo on the document. "I'm certain, I'll never forget her face for the rest of my life." "Great. Heaven rewards the diligent." Jeffrey's voice grew impassioned. "That year, Herman's village was hit by a once-in-a-century flood that swept away my wife and daughter. I've searched desperately for 10 years, and finally, there's a result." "Gabriel, I'll come join you right away. Let's go pick up my Barbara and bring her home together." The next day, Evan was on leave and took Barbara home. As soon as they entered, they were met with a messy living room and trash scattered all over the floor. Clay didn't wake up until the sun was high in the sky. When he saw Barbara, he ordered her rudely, "You're finally back. Hurry up and clean this place, it's filthy." Barbara had intended this to be the last time she'd fulfill her obligation. She turned to get the broom, but Evan stopped her. "Clean up the mess you made yourself." Clay looked at his brother in disbelief. Seeing that he wasn't joking, Clay could only pick up the broom resentfully. "It's not like I'm the one who dirted it myself." Barbara heard it but didn't take it seriously, telling Evan she was going upstairs to get something. That day when tidying the bedroom, she had only moved out the commonly used items, while the most important thing was still hidden in the safe under the bed. But when she opened the combination lock, she saw that the jade ring originally stored inside had vanished without a trace. Barbara was startled and hurriedly searched through the bedroom, afraid that she might have placed it somewhere else. "Barbara, are you looking for this?" An affected voice came from outside the door. Barbara turned around and saw Callista leaning against the doorframe, her right hand held upright, a jade ring of rich green hue adorning her fair finger. Her heart tightened sharply. "Callista, that's mine, is that so?" "This ring doesn't have your name on it. How can you prove it's yours?" Callista stroked the surface of the ring. What I found is mine. Barbara's voice trembled slightly with urgency. Callista. You can have anything you want, but this must be returned to me. Callista's eyes flashed as she slowly approached. I want you to give Evan to me. Fine. Barbara stared intently at the emerald ring and agreed without hesitation. I want you to move out of the Chapman house and never appear in Evan's presence for the rest of your life. I agree to all your conditions. Can you give me back the ring now? Callista took off the emerald ring, holding it between her fingers and extending it toward her. All right, just joking. Here's your ring back. Barbara was about to reach out when a green shadow swiftly swept past her fingertips like a meteor and crashed to the ground, instantly covering the ring's surface with cracks. Her expression went blank for a moment. Then anger surged through her entire body. Barbara raised her hand and slapped Callista hard across the face. Callista fell to the ground, turning her head in shock to glare at her. You bitch, how dare you hit me? Barbara remained expressionless, crouched down, grabbed her by the neck, and slapped her again. Her strength was immense. Callista immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and began crying out in fear. Evan rushed forward. Seeing that Barbara was about to land a third slap, he swiftly delivered a kick to her chest, sending her crashing against the wall. Callista, are you okay, Callista? Her face swollen on both sides and blood continuously trickling from the corner of her mouth, said through tears and sobs, Evan, I was just joking with Barbara. She failed to catch the ring herself and, in her shame and anger, blamed it on me. What would I do if my face got ruined? Clay's chest heaved with rage. He first rushed over and viciously kicked Barbara twice, then picked up the cracked ring. You hit Callista over this piece of junk, you vicious woman. Oh, I get it. Was it given to you by one of your lovers? Evan's expression changed. He took the ring and quickly walked over to Barbara. Who gave this to you? Speak. Barbara, her heart was throbbing with sharp pain from that kick, and now that he was questioning her, she felt nothing but disgust and nausea. She swallowed the blood in her mouth and forced a careless smile. You're not worthy of knowing her name. You bitch. You really did have another man behind my brother's back. I'll kill you. Clay was about to step forward when Evan shoved him back. Barbara, her words exploded in his mind like a nuclear bomb, and his face twisted with barely suppressed rage and a trace of imperceptible hurt. I'll ask one more time, who gave it to you? Barbara closed her eyes, remembering the warmth of her mother's palm when she caressed her. Our Barbara must marry a good man in the future, be happy and joyful for a lifetime, so that Mom can rest assured. A tear slid down her cheek. Barbara spoke. It was me. No matter who you are, from now on, you can only be Evan's person. The next second, he raised his hand and threw the jade ring out the window. With a snap, Barbara seemed to see the ring shatter into dust. She struggled to her feet and rushed to the window, shouting hoarsely, Mom. Evan and Clay froze, their faces instantly turning pale. Barbara came to the Chapman household alone. They had never cared about who her family was or where they were. As if they naturally assumed that in Barbara's world, there were only the two brothers. Evan, filled with regret, reached out to touch the emotionally broken Barbara, but she pushed him away sharply. Don't touch me, Barbara, I'm sorry, I was too impulsive. Evan, for the first time being rejected so firmly by Barbara, his heart ached with pain and sorrow. Barbara, her eyes vacant and dazed, she murmured blankly, one more day. Evan, his eyes lit up, and he quickly nodded, yes, yes. One more day, Barbara, we'll soon be legally married. Barbara snapping back to reality, she clutched her chest, each word dripping with blood. Evan, I hate you, I will never marry you. What? Evan suddenly changed his expression. Barbara, the application has already been submitted, no matter how angry you are. You can't say things like that. Barbara clutched her stomach, limping as she walked out, her tone icy cold. I'm going to the organization department right now to cancel the application. Clay was seeing such a desperate and sorrowful Barbara for the first time, and for a moment he didn't dare to reach out and stop her. Stop. Evan grabbed Barbara with reddened eyes. Barbara, are you really going to cancel the marriage? Barbara didn't even turn her head. Yes. Evan tightened his fingers more and more, as if trying to block the panic in his heart by holding on to the sensation of Barbara. Why? Even if I accidentally threw away your mother's ring just now, I already apologized. Apologize. Barbara let out a light, mocking laugh. Evan, you said it yourself. If apologies were useful, what would we need the police for? Evan's mind went blank, remembering the last time Callista accused Barbara of stealing her brooch. To show his impartiality, he had insisted that Barbara go out and earn money by washing clothes for others to compensate for the brooch at its original price. In the bitter cold of deep winter, Barbara's hands soaked in ice-cold water from morning till night, the chilblains swelling larger than radishes. Unable to bear it any longer, she pleaded, saying she was willing to admit her mistake and apologize, but he only gave her a cold glance and said, "If apologies were useful, what would we need the police for?" Now, this boomerang has struck right at the heart of him. Unerringly, Evan then realized that words could also pierce the heart, causing one to bleed incessantly. "No, I absolutely won't let you leave." The fear of losing Barbara overwhelmed Evan, and he immediately locked her in the bedroom. Barbara forcefully twisted the doorknob several times and then slammed her hand against the door. "Evan, let me out." "Barbara, rest well. Once the marriage certificate is issued tomorrow, you'll be free." With that, the sound of 3 sets of footsteps gradually faded away at the door. Barbara slowly slid down against the door, tears streaming down uncontrollably. The next morning at daybreak, Evan went on duty. Clay went to school, leaving Callista at home to watch over Barbara. Callista, seeing the 2 brothers walk away, she carefully took the sulfuric acid out of the cabinet, curling her lips into a smile. "Barbara, your good days are over." Barbara was awakened by the sound of the lock being opened. Yesterday, Evan and Clay had kicked her without holding back. Waking up, she felt as if her internal organs had shifted from the pain, and coupled with not having eaten all night, she was so weak she could barely see clearly. "Barbara, Evan asked me to take good care of you." Callista slowly sat by the bed, her cold fingers brushing Barbara's hair behind her ear. "I've got something good here. It can cure all diseases. Would you like to try it?" She handed over the sulfuric acid, her words full of temptation. "Drink this, and once you're healed, you can escape." Evan. Barbara opened her bewildered eyes and reached out to take it. Southwest Military Region. Evan was training new recruits when a sudden, inexplicable panic struck him, nearly making him lose his footing. "Lieutenant, what's wrong?" The guard immediately stepped forward to support him. Evan shook his head and was about to continue speaking, but waves of intensifying palpitations made it impossible for him to work. He hastily handed over the training tasks to the battalion commander and drove home himself. At that moment, Clay was also rushing home without stopping, and the 2 met at the intersection. "Brother, how come you're back?" Evan didn't stop walking. "I was worried, so I came back to check on Barbara." Just as they were about to enter the courtyard, they saw a man in a suit approaching from another alley. "Excuse me, does Barbara live here?" Evan looked him over. "Who are you? What do you want with her?" Gabriel smiled slightly. "You must be Mr. Evan. Nice to meet you. I'm Gabriel, Barbara's fiancé." Evan looked up sharply, his eyes sharp as blades. "Gabriel, watch your words. Barbara is my wife. Our marriage application was approved today." Gabriel smiled without warmth. "Mr. Evan, don't be so absolute. It hasn't been approved yet." "Has it?" Evan was angered by his flippant tone, his voice low and hoarse. "What do you mean? I don't care who you are. I won't let Barbara go with you. Barbara is an adult. She gets to make her own decisions." Clay also looked furious. "She won't leave. After all these years of dedicating herself to our family, how could she possibly bear to go?" "You said it yourself, your family." Gabriel's expression turned cold. "Since you never considered Barbara as family, what's wrong with me taking her away?" Clay step by step approached Gabriel, the fury in his eyes seeming to devour him. "With just one word from us, she can't leave. She listens to me and our eldest brother the most. Are you saying that because of this contract, Barbara has to be completely obedient to you?" Gabriel coldly threw a document at the 2 brothers. "What agreement?" Evan and Clay quickly scanned through all the contents of the contract. When they saw the end date and Barbara's signature, their minds exploded. The contract stipulated that for these 5 years, the Chapman brothers had any demands, Barbara had to find ways to fulfill them. She had to take care of their daily lives down to the smallest detail and, more importantly, ensure the safety of both their lives. So for these 5 years, Barbara's unconditional love for them was fake. Evan recalled the countdown Barbara had been mentioning these past few days, and his heart ached as if being twisted. It turned out Barbara had never loved him, so when the time came, she couldn't wait to leave. If he hadn't locked the door yesterday, by the time he got off work today, Barbara would probably have disappeared without a trace. Thinking of this, he clutched the agreement and rushed to Barbara to demand an explanation. Suddenly, the second-floor window was pushed open, and a familiar figure fell like a broken butterfly. "Barbara." Evan and Clay widened their eyes and were about to rush over, but Gabriel was faster, instantly holding Barbara securely in his arms. Barbara struggled to open her eyes, tightly clutching Gabriel's collar. "Please, take me away." Gabriel took a deep breath. "All right, Barbara, I'll take you away." Evan spread his arms to block him. "Gabriel, where are you taking my lieutenant's wife?" His face darkened as he attempted to block the man's path. Gabriel didn't even glance at him. Continuing to stride forward, Evan grew anxious. Who are you? What right do you have to take Barbara away? What if I want to take my daughter away? Will you still try to stop me? A dignified and steady voice came from ahead. Evan looked up sharply, his eyes stung by the medals adorning the man's chest. He recognized this man, Jeffrey, the director of the National Security Bureau. Mr. Evan, thank you for taking care of my daughter all these years. I'm taking her home now. Evan said through gritted teeth. Mr. Herman, Barbara and I are already married. Jeffrey turned his head slightly, and a guard handed him a marriage application. The 3 large characters not approved were deeply imprinted in his eyes, making him unable to hold back his tears. No, don't take my Barbara away. Gabriel had just placed her in the car when a pale hand stopped him. Barbara took a deep breath, sat up, and looked at Evan and Clay. Mr. Evan, the 5-year term has ended. From now on, I owe nothing to the Chapman family. After saying this, Barbara resolutely closed the car door. From now on, the sky is high and the sea is wide. She would never see these 2 people again. Big brother, Barbara has already left. Let's go back. After the car drove away, Evan had been standing at the intersection for a full 3 hours, like a motionless statue. He couldn't help but recall the first time he saw Barbara, a tall and slender 16-year-old girl with a youthful, delicate beauty on her face. She was very diligent, always getting up before dawn to prepare breakfast for them. After Evan went to the military base, she would take a flashlight and accompany Clay to school. When he drank too much with his army comrades and vomited all over himself, Barbara didn't show the slightest disgust. While tucking him in, she softly said, Evan, could you please stop drinking? That whisper stirred up a hurricane in his heart. Evan for the first time felt his heart tremble for Barbara. Later when he proposed to her, she agreed without a second thought, not even minding that he delayed taking her to get the marriage certificate, willingly staying with the Chapman family without a proper status. He thought Barbara was madly in love with him and would never leave him. Evan remained expressionless, but his fingers gripping the marriage application were so tight they turned white. Clay couldn't hold back any longer and blurted out, Brother, anyway, she was just a free maid staying in our house. If she's gone, then she's gone. The reason she was so good to us was only because you're a lieutenant in the military district. Now that she has a father with a higher position, she must be using her family background to climb the social ladder, in my opinion. You're a better match for Callista's sister anyway. It's just right that she left to make room for Callista's sister. Clay, Evan looked at him with unprecedented fierceness for the first time. Barbara is your one and only sister-in-law. Clay was startled and said dazedly, but she's already gone. Evan looked gloomy as he turned and went back into the house. Callista was eating an orange and watching TV in the living room. When she saw the 2 brothers, she immediately broke into a smile. Evan, Clay, you're finally back. Evan glanced at her and frowned. Callista, I remember only you and Barbara were home today. Why did Barbara jump from the 2nd floor? Did you, Evan, how could you accuse me like that? Callista's eyes were red, tears welling up in them. I had cooked today and wanted to bring the meal up to Barbara, but as soon as she saw the door open, she desperately tried to run out. I was afraid you'd be heartbroken if she left. So I tried persuading her patiently for a long time. Unexpectedly, she took advantage of my distraction, pushed me away, and jumped out the window. As she spoke, Callista lifted her hair to show them the wound on her forehead. I couldn't hold her back, but instead got pushed down, hit the cabinet, and passed out. I just woke up. Seeing Evan's suspicion fade from his eyes, she finally gathered the courage to approach him. Evan, it was my fault for not keeping an eye on Barbara. Please punish me. After all, she was a woman he had once loved. Seeing Callista in tears still stirred a sense of pity in him, and he reached out to wipe them away. Callista, it's not your fault. This is a matter between our Chapman family and Barbara. He then explained the situation with the contract and reassured her not to blame herself. Callista felt a surge of wild joy upon hearing this, and a fleeting hint of satisfaction flashed in her eyes. She asked with concern, Since it's just a contract, Evan, you don't need to take it too seriously. After all, you have no feelings for her, and her leaving is for the best for everyone, right? She went on and on with her comforting words, not noticing that Evan's expression was growing increasingly unpleasant. Receiving no response, Callista felt a bit awkward and quickly signaled to Clay to help him out. Little did she know that Clay had just stepped on a landmine and now didn't even dare to breathe too loudly. Who said I have no feelings for her? Callista, her smile instantly froze on her face. Evan lowering his head, he looked at the marriage application where he had painstakingly written mutual affection. hereby marrying, and felt unbearable pain. During those 3 years without Callista's news, he had never felt this miserable. He clenched his fists tightly. I will bring her back. I, Evan, will only marry Barbara in this lifetime. Callista's face instantly turned deathly pale. The next morning, Clay woke up groggily, pushed open the door and shouted, "Barbara, where's breakfast? I'm going to be late. Why didn't you wake me up?" Only after speaking did he remember what happened yesterday, and couldn't help but glance toward the master bedroom. Evan was already standing at the door in his military uniform, his expression gloomy. "Evan, Clay, come down for breakfast." A gentle voice called from the first floor. The two brothers' eyes lit up, and they quickly ran downstairs, only to find the smiling Callista standing by the dining table. A wave of heavy disappointment washed over their faces, and Callista, upon seeing this, nearly gritted her teeth in frustration. "Evan, Clay, I made egg kanji. Come and have breakfast." Evan and Clay looked at the porridge on the table and simultaneously remembered the tables full of steamed buns, dumplings, and pancakes when Barbara was around. Callista eagerly set the table for the two. "Evan, this is my first time cooking. You should try it quickly." Evan immediately noticed the obvious green scallion pieces in the porridge and frowned. "I don't eat scallions. Did you forget?" Callista was taken aback and stammered, "Sorry Evan, I'll make you another bowl." "Forget it, I'll go eat at the cafeteria. I'm heading out first." Evan had lost his appetite and walked straight out of the house. Clay was afraid Callista would feel uncomfortable, so he quickly took a big gulp, unexpectedly. The next moment he spat it all out with a retch. Callista jumped 3 meters away, afraid it would splash on her. "Clay, what's wrong with you?" Clay clutched his throat with a pained expression. "A huge piece of eggshell just stabbed my throat." Finally stepping out of the house, Clay unconsciously let out a long sigh of relief. He couldn't help but think of Barbara. If only she were here. A wave of intense regret struck his heart, draining all color from his entire being. Military canteen, Mr. Evan. Morning. Why are you eating at the canteen? Did your wife slack off and not make you breakfast today? The dumplings your wife brought last time were absolutely delicious. Lieutenant, how about having your wife join us to prepare the New Year's dinner this year, you greedy devil? Last time your wife came to deliver food because she was worried about Mr. Evan being sick, but you all ended up eating everything, and now you still want her to come cook for you. The lieutenant and his wife really make us bachelors envious. Evan bit into the sweet potato, his longing for Barbara growing more intense like surging waves. Last night he had wanted to search through Barbara's belongings, hoping to find some written words she might have left for him, only to discover she had already cleared out all her things at some point, completely clean, without leaving a single trace, as if Barbara had never lived there at all. At this thought, he couldn't sit still for another moment and immediately rushed into the military district commander's office. "Commander, I request a transfer to the City K military district, even if it means a demotion." The commander sitting behind the desk looked at him in surprise. "Mr. Evan, why is that? Your mother and younger brother are both here, yet you want to go to City K." Evan gave a bitter smile. "Commander, I had a small misunderstanding with my wife, and she ran off to City K." The commander was even more puzzled. "Wasn't your marriage application rejected, Evan? If the higher-ups didn't approve, it must be because they considered that girl unsuitable for you. There are plenty of good girls in our cultural troupe if you want to get married. You can consider them." Evan shook his head firmly. "Commander, I've decided she's the one for me in this lifetime. Please grant your approval." After a long silence, the commander sighed and took out a telegram. "Evan, it's not that I don't want to help you, but the higher-ups have issued an order. You are not to be transferred out of the Southwest Military Region for the next 5 years. These words struck like a bolt from the blue, bending Evan's upright spine. "Barbara, do you really not want to see him that much?" In the evening, Callista came to pick up Evan and immediately spotted the dejected man. She hurried over to him. "Evan, did work not go well?" Evan hadn't even had time to speak when he heard one of his subordinate soldiers passing by shout loudly, "Good afternoon, Lieutenant, good afternoon." He immediately furrowed his brows, but when his gaze met Callista's shy expression, he paused for a moment. "They're just being rowdy, don't mind them." "Why would I mind?" Callista took a step closer to him, her voice soft and tender. "I'm actually very happy. Evan, I've missed you so much these past 5 years. While I was abroad, I survived on our memories alone. You have no idea how much I wanted to return to your side." Evan, his pupils trembled slightly as the soft touch of Callista on his arm sent a wave of discomfort through him. "Callista, what we had is already in the past." Evan coldly pushed away Callista, who was leaning against him. "Lately, military tasks have been busy. and Clay needs to focus on studying for the college entrance exams. If you have something to discuss, just call my office directly." Callista turned pale at his words. It was clear he meant she shouldn't appear before him unless necessary. How could he? How dare he? "Evan, what do you mean? Have you forgotten your solemn vows to me? Have you forgotten how I rescued you and Clay from the fire? Barbara can't compare to me at all. She hasn't even been educated, just a dull village girl, and you're choosing her over me." Evan looked at the distraught Callista before him and suddenly found her utterly unfamiliar. "If not for remembering your life-saving grace, I wouldn't have indulged you to this extent." He remembered Barbara, deep affection surfacing in his eyes. "Barbara, even if she falls short of you in every way, I still love her." Callista returned home in despair, finding a letter from the United States lying in the mailbox at her doorstep. The moment she opened it, she screamed and threw the photo in her hand to the ground. "My child, don't harm my child." The photo shows a 3-year-old child covered in bruises and wounds, with a terrified gaze that seems to be pleading for help from his mother thousands of miles away. Callista clutched the photo to her chest, her heart aching as she whispered through tears, "Wait for Mommy to bring you home." Evan hadn't seen Callista for several days and assumed she had come to terms with things, so he didn't pay it much mind. He had already planned to take time off next week to visit Barbara. After buying a train ticket to City K, he began preparing gifts. In the past 5 years, he had been too busy to ever think of giving Barbara a gift, but now he intended to make up for it all, imagining Barbara's happy expression when she saw the gift. He couldn't help but curl the corners of his mouth into a smile, but as soon as he stepped out of the shop, he clearly overheard people around him whispering about him. "Is he the one from the newspaper? The officer who abandoned his devoted girlfriend and fell for a high-ranking official? He looks decent enough. But how can his heart be so wicked?" Evan was about to step forward and ask for an explanation when he was abruptly stopped by Clay, who came running in a hurry. "Brother, it's bad. You need to look at the newspaper quickly." Evan took it and saw the bold headline on the front page clearly stating, "The loyal girlfriend saved people in a fire only to be abandoned, while the high official's daughter seized the opportunity to steal her lover." The article used pseudonyms for Callista and Evan, but the name Barbara was printed in the newspaper without any changes. In this small town, it was immediately clear which family this story was about. Evan's face grew darker the more he read. "This is utter nonsense. Who wrote this? Bring them to me." Clay was so anxious that sweat covered his forehead. "Brother, there's no time. The commander called the house and wants to see you immediately." The commander slammed the newspaper onto the table with a sharp crack and angrily shouted, "Evan, what on earth is going on? You've completely disgraced the honor of our military." These words made Evan tremble all over. His reputation, built over so many years in the military, had been destroyed overnight by a single newspaper. "Commander, I will get to the bottom of this." The commander's face was stern. "What good will finding out do? The urgent matter now is how to resolve this situation. Tell me yourself, what should be done?" Evan clenched his jaw. "I will personally publish a statement in the newspaper to explain the truth. By the time the newspaper approval comes through, it'll be too late to matter." As tensions were rising, a clear and gentle voice came from the doorway. "Commander, Evan, I have an idea." Evan turned to look at Callista, his expression instantly turning serious. "This is a restricted military zone. How did you get in?" Clay followed behind Callista. "Brother, I was the one who brought Callista in. Clay told me about this matter, and I'm very worried about you," Callista said with deep concern in her eyes. Evan pursed his lips. "You said you have a solution. What is it?" Callista looked both concerned and aggrieved. "If I marry you, as soon as the wedding is held, they'll know the truth." "Impossible," Evan flatly refused. Callista's eyes reddened. "Evan, I just want to help you get through this difficult time. What if the organization finds out about all the ugly rumors spreading outside and blames you for improper relationships?" Evan hesitated. Callista pressed her advantage. "As for Barbara, she's now in City K. Who would know her there and gossip in front of her? The priority is to protect your reputation." City K, Herman family's house. Barbara entered Jeffrey's study with a newspaper, only to find Gabriel there as well. "Barbara, what's wrong?" Barbara glanced at Gabriel and said, "It's nothing, Dad." "Gabriel, you two go ahead with your work." Gabriel called out to stop her. "Barbara, is it because of the newspaper?" Barbara lowered her eyes and nodded. She had thought that after leaving the Chapman family, Evan and Callista would let her be, but she never expected them to use such despicable means to tarnish her reputation. Jeffrey suddenly realized and said, "As soon as Gabriel found out about this, he resolved it immediately. He's reporting to me right now. Would you like to listen?" Barbara was taken aback, resolved. Gabriel smiled slightly and pulled out a chair for her to sit. Don't worry, I've already tracked down the journalist who wrote the article. He confessed to me about the mastermind behind it and an old incident. Barbara looked at him curiously, only to see his beautiful eyes filled with heartache. Back then, you risked entering the fire to save the Chapman brothers, but Callista stole the credit. Barbara widened her eyes in disbelief. All of this was orchestrated by Callista, wasn't it? Gabriel nodded and said with pity, you've suffered all these years. She hadn't cried when she was slandered and insulted, nor when she was beaten and abused. Yet for some reason, Gabriel's gentle words made her eyes redden. She spoke with such grievance for the first time, but none of them believed me. Jeffrey and Gabriel felt heartbroken and quickly comforted her, saying, don't be afraid, Barbara, from now on. With your dad and your brother Gabriel here, we will never let you suffer any grievances again. That's right, that Callista, I've already had her arrested and brought to justice. The police chief, having received orders from his superiors, immediately dispatched officers, and 2 police cars drove into the Southwest Military District compound. In the commander's office, Callista was still waiting for Evan's answer. Just as Evan nodded in agreement, a crisp knock was heard at the door. The police officers filed in and walked up to Callista. Callista, you are suspected of using the press for defamation and spreading rumors. Please come with us to the police station to cooperate with the investigation. These words struck like a thunderbolt, causing Callista to go weak in the knees. Nearly collapsing to the ground, her face instantly changed color, yet she still feigned composure. However, her words came out flustered and panicked, and she could only offer a feeble explanation. I didn't. How could I possibly slander anyone? I didn't write the report. What does it have to do with me? I'm the victim. Evan was somewhat bewildered, but instinctively defended Callista. Comrade, could there be some misunderstanding here? Clay was utterly shocked. Exactly. How could Callista do something like that? The officer said, Mr. Evan, we know you have a close relationship with Callista, but please don't let personal feelings interfere with official duties. Evan frowned, showing displeasure. Comrade, what kind of attitude is that? Am I not even allowed to raise reasonable questions? Mr. Evan, if you don't believe it, listen to the testimony yourself. With that, 2 police officers escorted a thin, frail man inside. Evan exclaimed in surprise, calling out his name. Reporter Chen Ming, a mere junior reporter, had never seen such a scene before. He immediately dropped to his knees with a thud. Mr. Evan, I'll confess everything. Please don't execute me. The reports were all written at Callista's request. She gave me $5 and told me to do everything I could to slander you and Barbara, so she could find an opportunity to marry you, and that previous story about rescuing people from the fire. She also asked me to write that fake news. Every word from the reporter struck Evan like a thunderbolt, darkening his vision. He lunged forward, grabbing Chen Ming by the collar, his handsome face contorted. What did you say? Chen Ming trembled all over in fear. The one who saved you and your brother that day was actually Barbara. Callista schemed to take credit for it in order to get close to you. Callista let out a sharp scream. That's not true, Evan. This bitch is slandering me. You can't listen to him. A sharp, stabbing pain shot through Evan's temples, and in his daze, he seemed to recall the scene from that day. Amid the raging flames, a slender figure rushed toward him without hesitation. He finally saw her face clearly. It was Barbara. Evan, hold on. I won't let you die. Through the intense heat and thick smoke, Barbara struggled to drag him and Clay out of the restaurant. The flames scorched her skin and singed her hair, yet she didn't utter a single sound of pain. It wasn't until they were safe that she collapsed beside him. Evan's eyes burned red with fury. He rushed over and slapped Callista hard across the face. You bitch, how dare you lie to me? Callista covering her stinging cheek, her face full of shock and grievance. Evan, you hit me. You suspect me just based on these few words. Evan trembling with anger all over. It was you who drove Barbara away. You deliberately set it up to make me misunderstand her. It's all you. Callista also red-eyed. Evan, although I framed her, don't forget, the words and actions that hurt Barbara were done by you yourselves. Now you're trying to absolve yourselves, but you are the real culprits. Evan stiffened. Yes, it was their distrust and lack of appreciation for Barbara that led her to leave so decisively. At this moment, regret spread like seawater, soaking his entire heart in agony. Evan turned to the commander and requested, Commander, I request 1 week of leave. I need to go to City K. He is about to go right now to Barbara and personally tell her his sorry, and the words he's owed her for years. I love you, Gabriel. Barbara had just come out of the university library when she bumped into Gabriel walking toward her. Gabriel said somewhat helplessly. Barbara, just call me by my name. Barbara looked at this childhood playmate who was once her closest companion, the boy next door from her memories, who used to lead her in chasing cats, teasing dogs, and stealing bird eggs, had grown into a tall and handsome man without her realizing it. Yet, because she had wasted 5 years, the distance between them had grown wider. That wouldn't be appropriate. Barbara suppressed the inexplicable sense of inferiority in her heart and whispered. Gabriel didn't force her. Instead, he took the books from her hands and said, "Let me walk you home." The two walked quietly through the snow, and as they passed by 2 small snowmen, Barbara couldn't help but stop in her tracks. It doesn't snow in the southwest region, so it had been a long time since she had last built a snowman. "Want to play?" Gabriel asked. Barbara was taken aback and instinctively shook her head. For the past 5 years, she had always been busy. The Chapman household had many matters to attend to both inside and out, and over time, she had forgotten how to have fun. But even so, Evan and Clay would only find her dull. Thinking she knew nothing beyond household chores, Gabriel took her hand. "It's all right. If later Mr. Herman asks, I'll take the blame for you. Don't be afraid." Barbara felt the warmth from his palm, and it made her heart grow warm as well. Like 7 or 8-year-old children, they pulled the buttons off their coats to use as eyes, laughing heartily at the comical snowman. When they got home, Jeffrey had already eaten. Seeing their disheveled state, he asked, "Were you too robbed?" Barbara and Gabriel exchanged a glance, smiling as they said, "Dad, Gabriel and I went to build a snowman." Jeffrey poured them hot tea to warm up. "You, kid, don't even know how to take Barbara to do something more elegant. Do you two still think you're bare-bottomed little kids? Why don't you mention how you sprained your waist having a snowball fight with the soldiers last year, you little rascal?" Gabriel knew when to stop and looked at Barbara. "How about I take you to see a movie tomorrow?" Barbara's eyes lit up as she nodded gently. "Okay." Gabriel left after having dinner at Herman's house. Barbara saw him out. "Goodbye, Gabriel brother, it's see you tomorrow." Gabriel raised his eyebrows slightly and waved at her. "Sweet dreams, Barbara." The small interaction between the two was witnessed by Jeffrey, who quickly asked after Barbara closed the door, "Barbara, what do you think of Gabriel?" Barbara was a bit embarrassed. "Dad, he's quite nice." Jeffrey held her hand and sighed. "All these years, he never gave up looking for you. Whenever female comrades in the army asked about him, he always said he already had someone in his heart. I can tell that Gabriel truly cares for you." Barbara felt a tremor in her heart. Gabriel was such a good man, how could she have ever forgotten him? The next day, Barbara packed up early and waited for him at the door. The snowstorm had ceased, and the winter sun shone upon the earth, making one's mood exceptionally bright and clear. Barbara looked up. Gabriel wasn't wearing his military uniform today. A white shirt paired with a black overcoat made him appear even more refined and elegant. "You look really beautiful today." Gabriel gazed at her deeply. Barbara showed a faint smile. "This is my first time watching a movie, so I thought I should dress a bit more formally. Then I'm benefiting from the movie's influence." Barbara blushed, her gaze softening. Before she could speak again, a deep voice interrupted. "Barbara, I finally found you." Evan strode over briskly, his eyes showing admiration as he looked at Barbara. "Barbara, it's only been a few days, but you've changed a lot." Barbara indifferently avoided his outstretched hand and did not respond. Evan was stung by her cold attitude. "Barbara, I've come to take you home." Gabriel pulled her behind him, his expression cold. "Mr. Evan, are you not in your right mind? This is Barbara's real home." Evan looked at their joined hands, his fists clenching with jealousy. "Gabriel, men and women should not touch when giving or receiving things. Let go of Barbara, Mr. Evan. It's a new era now. Don't use your old-fashioned thinking to restrict Barbara's normal social interactions." Gabriel stood his ground, his tone firm. Barbara patted Gabriel's hand and stepped out from behind him. Evan was overjoyed to see Barbara. "Barbara, I knew you couldn't bear to part with me. I've already learned about Callista's malicious actions. Don't worry, I'll help you get even." Barbara found his high-sounding words utterly ridiculous. At this point, he's pushing all the blame onto Callista, clearly not realizing his own mistakes. "Evan, I made myself very clear that day what we had ended long ago. I have nothing more to do with you. Please don't disturb my life anymore." Barbara's firm stance on drawing boundaries made it hard for Evan to accept. "Barbara, I know I was wrong. Can't you give me a chance to make things right? I will always be good to you from now on, if you're willing. I'll submit the marriage application immediately. I promise to love and trust you forever." Barbara sneered coldly. "Evan, I don't care for any of what you're saying. You can take it all to Callista." Evan instantly lost all color from his face. Barbara, why, you weren't like this before. Barbara silently watched him. Yes, she wasn't like this before. Before, she would only listen to Evan's commands, revolving around him all day, trying to please him, endlessly tolerating his temper and indifference. Yet, her groveling efforts only earned her vicious insults and broken ribs from being kicked. Now, she's only showing a fraction of what she once endured, and he can't even handle that. It's truly utterly disgusting. Barbara, I brought you a gift. See if you like it. If not, I'll take you to buy something else. Evan nervously took out several gift boxes. This is that dress you wanted, the roses you once tried to grow but failed, and the chestnut cakes you often buy at home. Barbara looked utterly disappointed. Evan, this dress reminds me of the first and only time you took me shopping. I wanted it. But you spent all the money you had to buy Callista an expensive cheongsam instead. I grew roses because you like them. But the reason you like roses is because Callista likes them. Finally, Evan, it's been 5 years, and you still don't know I'm allergic to chestnuts. Evan looked bewildered. You're allergic to chestnuts? You never told me. Barbara interrupted him. I did, on the day you proposed to me. A full box of pastries fell to the ground. Barbara sighed and said, what a pity. You could have taken it back for Clay to eat. With just one sentence, Evan's heart felt as if it were being sliced to pieces. Barbara was allergic to chestnuts, yet she often bought chestnut cakes because her younger brother liked them. I'm sorry, Evan said hoarsely. Barbara stopped talking, took Gabriel's hand, and brushed past him, all the way to the cinema. Barbara's mood remained low. Gabriel led her to their seats before she finally reacted and asked, what movie are we watching? A foreign crime-solving film. It's about a forensic examiner, forensic pathologist. Barbara was somewhat curious, immediately putting Evan out of her mind as she focused on watching the movie. The professional and impressive image of the female forensic pathologist in the movie left a deep impression on her, and she was still thinking about it even after leaving the cinema. What's wrong? Have you taken a liking to the profession of forensic pathology? Gabriel asked her with amusement. Barbara nodded with bright eyes. I think this job is very special and meaningful. I wish I could become a forensic pathologist. Barbara, you're so smart. I'm sure you can do it. But I didn't even finish high school. I'm worried I'm not qualified to study forensic medicine. Gabriel patted her head and said, don't worry, I'm here for you. Barbara hadn't even processed what was happening before Gabriel brought her to the City K police station, an old forensic examiner. Seeing her exceptionally steady hands as she threaded needles and made incisions, repeatedly praised her and immediately wanted to take Barbara as his final disciple. Barbara looked at Gabriel in surprise. The old forensic examiner keenly looked over. What's wrong, young lady? Are you unwilling? I'm willing, Barbara immediately said. Teacher, although I don't understand anything yet, I will work hard to learn from you. Then starting tomorrow, come and join us for on-the-job training. After walking out of the police station, Barbara still felt as if in a dream. Is this real? Am I still in a movie? Gabriel found her innocence endearing and gently tapped her nose. Pinch yourself and see if you're dreaming. Barbara indeed gave herself a hard pinch, then said with teary eyes, it's real. Gabriel chuckled. Don't worry, Mr. Herman and Mr. Wilson have been good friends for many years. Feel at ease learning from him, and come find me anytime you encounter difficulties. Barbara looked at his steady and reliable eyes, feeling a sweet flutter in her heart. Thank you, Gabriel. I said when we were kids that I would take care of you for a lifetime, and this heart of mine has never changed. Gabriel looked at her and said seriously, when they were children. Because they had an arranged marriage, they were always teased by the kids in the same village. Everyone in the village knew that Barbara was Gabriel's little wife, and little Gabriel was also very responsible, taking good care of little Barbara no matter the time or place. Back then, the two firmly believed they would always be together. Barbara's eyes reddened as she poured out the emotions she had suppressed for years. Brother Gabriel, I've missed you so much. Gabriel held her tightly in his arms. Barbara, me too. Let's never be apart again. Okay. The clear sunset, and clusters of sunset glow emerged, a rare beautiful scene, yet it couldn't reach into the prison. Clay brought food and clothes to Callista, and looking at the haggard woman before him, he couldn't help but ask, why did you do this? Callista curled her lips into a smile. Who told Barbara to take my place? She deserved it. Even though she had approached the Chapman family with ill intentions, when she saw Evan with a new woman by his side, she was still driven mad with jealousy. If she hadn't misjudged people back then and gone abroad, that country bumpkin would never have had a chance. Clay defended Barbara for the first time. She didn't take your spot. You were the one who left first. Sister Callista, you've changed. You wouldn't have done something like this before. Callista let out a mocking laugh. You're in no position to lecture me. What I'm curious about is why, despite acting like you can't stand her, you've secretly hidden her photo in your room. Clay turned pale and stammered. How did you know? Callista let out a cold laugh. What do I know? That you were clearly awake on the day of the fire. Or that you covet your sister-in-law and cooperated with me to drive a wedge between you and your brother. The moment he walked out of the prison, Clay was drenched in cold sweat. Callista's seductive voice seemed to still linger in his ear. Clay, we share the same goal. Why not cooperate with me? Once it's done, Barbara will be yours. On the first day of work, there was no case. Mr. Wilson gave her a few books. Medical knowledge is inherently obscure and difficult to understand, and forensic knowledge is even more complex. He had thought Barbara wouldn't be able to persist for more than an hour, but unexpectedly, she was able to quietly ponder it all morning, filling an entire notebook with key points. It wasn't until noon when Gabriel came to bring her lunch that she reluctantly stopped. I made your favorite sweet and sour ribs from when you were a child. Try them and see if they taste good. Gabriel set out the dishes one by one on the table. Barbara held her chopsticks with an expectant look. It looks very flavorful. Back at the Chapman household, she always prioritized Evan and Clay's tastes first. No one ever cared about what she liked to eat. If you like it, I'll bring you meals every day. Barbara had just raised her chopsticks when a young officer rushed in. Barbara, someone's at the station entrance saying they're here to deliver lunch for you. Barbara and Gabriel exchanged puzzled glances, then walked out, only to find Evan standing right at the door. Barbara, I heard you're working now, so I brought you lunch. Barbara frowned, feeling for the first time that Evan was being unreasonable. No need, I already have lunch. Evan looked at Gabriel, his eyes filled with obvious hostility. Gabriel, I appreciate you taking care of Barbara, but next time, please don't interfere in the family matters between Barbara and me. Barbara never expected Evan to acknowledge her as family for the first time while competing for someone's affection. If it were back when she was all alone and helpless, she might have felt a bit of warmth and gratitude, but now his cheap affection was something she didn't want even a little bit. Evan, what's between us is nothing more than a piece of paper agreement, Evan hurriedly interrupted. I already know the whole truth. But Barbara, haven't these 5 years of living together been real? I can feel all your kindness and consideration towards me. I don't believe you have no feelings for me at all. Barbara looked at the tall man before her and said calmly, I admit I had expectations of you before. Evan felt a surge of excitement. I knew it, Barbara. I've already cut ties with Callista. I won't let her appear before you again, nor will I allow her to stir up trouble in our home. Come home with me, Barbara. I'll give you a grand wedding and declare you as my one and only love. Barbara curled her lips, her eyes filled with sarcasm. You've misunderstood. I never loved you. That little bit of hope was completely worn away after you chose Callista time and time again. You are nothing but an insignificant stranger to me now. Evan's eyes were filled with pleading and hurt. Barbara, don't say things in anger. I've long since lost feelings for Callista. It's you I love. Clay knows he was wrong too. He wants to apologize to you in person. We both miss you so much. Do you miss me, or do you miss my meticulous care and efforts to please? What you lack isn't me, but an obedient servant and a watchdog. A chilling wind swept through Evan's heart, making it hard for him to breathe. That's not true. Barbara, her eyes grew calm. Evan, I'm very grateful that Mrs. Chapman once extended a helping hand to me. Now that I've repaid the favor, I have my own life to live, and I want to pursue my dreams. Barbara, I'm not hindering you from pursuing your ideals. After we reconcile, you can still live this kind of life. Family and dreams can coexist. Barbara stepped back from his advancing footsteps. The Chapman family has been a cage that clipped my wings, and I've endured it for 5 years. Let's part on good terms. Evan, don't make me hate you. Evan was shattered by the myriad sword strikes. Unable to meet Barbara's cold gaze any longer, he turned and left, utterly dejected. Gabriel snorted coldly. You didn't cherish what you had when you had it, and now you regret it only after losing it. What's the use? Barbara rarely saw this childish side of him and found it somewhat amusing. Gabriel took her hand. I would never treat you the way he did. I believe you. Through Barbara's diligent studying, in just under half a year she was already able to assist Mr. Wilson with autopsies, when the police department was short-staffed. She would even accompany them to crime scenes. Meanwhile, Callista was finally released. Staggering back home, she immediately went to the mailbox to retrieve the long-accumulated letters. The most recent one was a black-and-white obituary notice. Her son Jimmy had been executed due to her prolonged loss of contact. The little boy in the photo lay in a pool of blood with vacant eyes. still clutching the toy car that Callista had bought for him until his last breath. "Ah," Callista wailed in agony, tears streaming down her face. Why did she have to live such a miserable life? Why did Evan abandon her? And how could Barbara receive everyone's love? It's all their fault for causing her child's death. Callista stumbled to her feet and took out that bottle of sulfuric acid from the cabinet. "I want all of you to be buried with my son." Clay came home from school and, as soon as he pushed the door open, he smelled the strong scent of alcohol. Ever since Evan returned from City K, his spirit seemed to have completely collapsed, and he spent his days drinking and consumed with anxiety. Clay, looking at the messy room and the liquor bottles scattered all over the floor, he couldn't take it anymore and rushed into the master bedroom. "Bro, how long are you going to keep this up?" Evan lifted his head with bleary eyes. How could she have never loved me? How could she be so heartless and just leave like that? Clay froze for a moment. And after realizing who Evan was muttering about, a flicker of excitement actually rose in his heart. If Barbara had never liked his brother, did that mean he still had a chance? Clay settled Evan in, and was just about to go out to buy lunch when he saw the guard rushing over. "Clay, where's the lieutenant? I have some good news to tell him." "What good news?" the guard said. "The 2 forensic support personnel sent by City K have arrived. One of them is Barbara." Clay was startled, and without saying another word, hurriedly ran outside. At the police station, an official vehicle slowly pulled up to the entrance. The police chief quickly stepped forward to greet them. "Mr. Wilson, Barbara, you both must be tired from the long journey." Barbara followed behind Mr. Wilson, wearing a police uniform under a police overcoat, looking both beautiful and sharp. The chief's eyes lit up, as if recalling who she was. "Barbara looks so familiar. You're from the Chapman family." Barbara smiled slightly and interrupted. "Chief, the case is important. Let's start the meeting first. This was a serial murder case, and there were already 5 victims." Mr. Wilson and Barbara didn't rest for a moment. They immediately started working after understanding the case. 5 hours later, Barbara submitted the report to the criminal police team and returned to the dormitory to rest with Mr. Wilson. The 2 were called back just as they stepped out of the police station gate. Barbara looked up and saw Clay holding a bouquet of roses. "What are you doing here?" Clay seemed to ignore the coldness in her tone, smiling as he stepped forward and offered the roses. "I heard you were coming and specially rushed here to welcome you." Barbara listened to his awkward choice of words and looked at the bouquet of red roses, taking a step back without accepting them. "Thank you, I appreciate the thought, but please take them back." Barbara assumed he was there to persuade her on Evan's behalf. "Please step aside, I need to escort the teacher back to the dorm." Clay opened his mouth, looking somewhat aggrieved. "Barbara, I've been waiting for you all afternoon." After speaking, he gave a pitiful glance at Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson understood the situation and said, "Barbara, there's no need to see me off. If you have something to attend to, please go ahead and handle it." Barbara also wanted to clarify things with Clay, so she had to apologize to Mr. Wilson. "I'm sorry, teacher. Please be careful on your way. Go early and come back early. Otherwise, when Gabriel asks later, I won't cover for you." Barbara watched Mr. Wilson off with a smile, then turned to Clay and said lightly, "Let's go." Clay, watching her change in attitude, felt quite, "Why don't you smile at me like that?" Barbara looked at him strangely. "Who I smile at is my business. If you have a problem with it, go find Callista." Nowadays, Callista, these 3 words are like a thorn piercing Evan and Clay's hearts, causing a stinging pain whenever they hear them. "I won't say it anymore. Don't be angry." The 2 walked to the restaurant, and before all the dishes were served, Clay couldn't hold back anymore. He had been raised by Barbara since childhood, and now with sudden changes at home, their standard of living had plummeted. All the grievances he'd been holding in finally found an outlet. He pitifully described how miserable his life had been, how he couldn't eat well or dress warmly, and how his grades had plummeted as a result. He also said that he was young and had been deceived by Callista for many years. Only realizing the truth after Barbara left, he had been filled with regret and self-blame all this time, only wanting to apologize to her in person and make it up to her properly. Barbara found it amusing and asked, "Do you want me to return to the Chapman family, marry your brother, and continue to serve your every need?" Clay looked at Barbara's hand resting on the table, mustered his courage, and directly grasped it. "Barbara, I know you don't like my older brother. Marry me instead. I'll get into a good university and give you a good life." Barbara immediately withdrew her hand, raising her voice in shock. "Clay, have you gone mad?" Clay looked at her earnestly and persistently. "I'm not mad, Barbara. You've taken care of me for so many years. You've long been close to my heart. If my elder brother doesn't cherish you, then let me be the one to love you properly. Barbara listened to these words, feeling only her scalp go numb and her stomach churn. Clay, I advise you to put away such thoughts and not cause trouble for me. If you continue to act recklessly, I won't mind having your brother personally teach you a lesson. After saying this, she stood up directly and hurriedly walked out. Clay quickly chased after her, directly embracing her from behind. Barbara, my feelings for you are genuine. I love you. Before Barbara could struggle, a large hand tore her away from Clay's embrace. Evan's cold, angry voice sounded from above. Clay, what are you doing? Clay naturally felt somewhat fearful of Evan, being caught red-handed harassing his brother's wife. His face instantly turned pale. Brother, I wasn't doing anything. Before the words were even finished, Evan punched him to the ground. Evan said with a livid face, did you learn nothing about propriety, righteousness, integrity, and honor? Did it all go to the dogs? Barbara is your sister-in-law. Clay, in pain and anger, disregarded everything and retorted loudly in public. You're not even legally married, and Barbara doesn't like you, so why can't I pursue her? Evan, struck in a sore spot, felt a surging rage that threatened to consume him. Say that again. Clay looked at his tightly clenched fists, his face full of unwillingness. Big brother, you can't block my love just because you can't win back Barbara. Evan raised his fist high, ready to strike again when Barbara couldn't take it anymore and shouted, stop. Evan trembled all over, his gaze towards Barbara turning hurt and aggrieved, while Clay was full of excitement. Barbara, I knew you cared about me the most. Barbara watched the farce unfolding before her, feeling nothing but irritation and disgust. Evan, Clay, do you really think you're any better? Her tone was sarcastic. If it weren't for repaying a debt of gratitude, I would never have anything to do with you in this lifetime. You've already ruined 5 years of my life. Why should I sacrifice the rest of my life to your Chapman family? Keep claiming you love me. Is it genuine love or just unwillingness to accept you know the answer in your hearts? The two brothers stood frozen in place, their eyes red-rimmed and filled with remorse and pain. No, Barbara, we genuinely feel sorry for you and want to treat you well. From the moment the agreement ended, Barbara no longer showed her previous docility towards these two men. Even hearing them speak annoyed her. I don't need it, she coldly interrupted. I don't want either of you. Besides, I have a boyfriend. I hope you won't disturb my life anymore from now on. Evan couldn't believe it. How could it be so fast? Is it Gabriel? Yes, I've known Gabriel since childhood. Our families arranged a marriage for us when we were young. If not for that accident, we would have been married with children by now. After saying this, she didn't even glance at the two of them again. Turning to leave, none of the three noticed that in a dim corner not far away, Callista had witnessed everything. In just half a year, their positions had completely reversed. The country girl who used to only bury herself in housework had now become a young, beautiful forensic pathologist with an enviable career and love life. She seethed with hatred, her nails digging 5 blood-streaked crescents into her palms. Her gaze shifted restlessly among the three of them before finally fixing on Barbara's retreating figure. If Barbara were to disappear, with the assistance of Mr. Wilson and Barbara, the perpetrator was quickly apprehended. To show his gratitude, the chief specially reserved a private room and insisted that both must attend. During dinner, Barbara was delayed by an urgent document. She only managed to finish it before rushing to the restaurant. Amidst the clinking of glasses, Barbara had no choice but to drink a few cups of wine. She left the table to get some fresh air at the restaurant entrance, only to unexpectedly run into Evan and Clay. Barbara was not as good-tempered as usual at the moment. If you keep following me, I'll report you. Now that Barbara is a public official, she is under the protection of the organization. If she speaks up, the two of them will inevitably face punishment. Barbara, we didn't mean to disturb you. We just wanted to watch over you from afar and ensure your safety. Evan softened his voice, afraid of upsetting Barbara. Barbara let out a cold laugh. Your existence is the greatest danger to me. Every injury I've suffered in this life has been caused by you. Both of them simultaneously recalled the slap they gave her when they wrongly accused her of bullying Callista. The porcelain shards she was forced to kneel on, the kicks that made her cough up blood, and even how they ultimately drove her to jump off a building to escape. They had deliberately tried to forget, but now Barbara ruthlessly tore away the veil covering those memories. Barbara coldly watched the two weakened figures before her, about to turn and leave, when she suddenly heard frantic footsteps rushing toward her. She turned her head abruptly and saw the disheveled, madwoman-like Callista charging toward her with a bottle in hand. Barbara, watch out! Evan and Clay simultaneously lunged toward Barbara. All of you, Go to hell. In Barbara's terrified eyes, an unidentified liquid was about to be thrown at her. The next moment, a loud gunshot echoed through the sky. Callista's elbow now had a hole gushing with blood. She let out a scream. Some of the contents from the bottle splashed onto her. The intense pain immediately made her convulse and collapse to the ground, letting out a desperate and agonizing roar. It hurts so much. Evan, save me. In the private room, Mr. Wilson and his colleagues from the police station all rushed out. Seeing her condition, they immediately shouted, "It's sulfuric acid. Get her to the hospital quickly. Any later and she'll be gone." Barbara was so frightened that her whole body turned cold. And she didn't snap out of it until Gabriel quickly walked over and held her in his arms. "Brother Gabriel, she wanted to kill me." Gabriel also felt a wave of fear. If he hadn't arrived in time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Suppressing his restless emotions, he softly comforted Barbara. "Don't be afraid, as long as I'm here, no one can harm you." Barbara sought security in his warm embrace. "Thank goodness you came." Evan and Clay exchanged a glance. Seeing both trepidation and bitter disappointment in each other's eyes, Callista was targeting Barbara because of them. Though they claimed they would protect her, they were less useful than Gabriel, who had come from afar. Evan understood in his heart that they no longer had the right to stand by Barbara's side. He took one last look at the embracing couple, tugged at Clay's hand, and said, "Let's go." Clay, however, kept staring at Gabriel, a trace of unwillingness still lingering in his heart. He had only lost to Gabriel because he didn't have a weapon. If he had a gun too, the one embracing Barbara would be him. Callista had her life saved through emergency treatment, but her face was destroyed by contact with sulfuric acid. Unable to accept her appearance, she screamed and raged every day in the hospital room. "It's not my fault. Why does fate have to be so unfair to me? My child was so young when they killed him. I want the whole world to pay for my son's death." Barbara and Gabriel stood at the door of the hospital room, listening to the incoherent words in confusion. "Does she have children?" Barbara shook her head. "Not that I know of, but she lived in the United States for 5 years. Could it be that she got married and had children there?" Gabriel glanced back at the hospital room, his expression thoughtful. "Damn it." Jeffrey looked at Gabriel's telegram sent overnight, which clearly listed Callista's intentional harm to Barbara, along with every detail about her. Back then, she went abroad to study and got married and had a child with someone else in less than half a year. But who would have thought that shortly after marriage, her husband would reveal his true colors, not only yelling and shouting at Callista but also physically assaulting her. Callista sought help from the foreign police but received no assistance, so she could only sneak back on her own while he wasn't paying attention. After returning to her home country, she set her sights on her first love and even used him to do some shady things. Jeffrey slammed his palm heavily on the table, creating a loud, dull thud. "Detain all relevant personnel immediately for trial." Training ground. Evan had just finished a morning of training when suddenly a group of people rushed straight toward him, surrounding him. "What are you trying to do?" Evan instinctively sensed that something was wrong, until Gabriel approached from a distance and handed over an investigation form. "Evan, you're involved in a case. The National Security Agency needs to conduct a full investigation on you. Please cooperate." Evan immediately changed his expression. "Gabriel, this is slander. Whether it's slander or not, the State Security Bureau will find out through investigation." The commander's voice came from behind. Evan snapped back to reality and looked at the driver, anxiously saying, "Commander, you know my character. How could I possibly do such a thing?" The commander looked at him with disappointment. "I've long advised you to handle your relationships with women properly, but you never listened. You've brought this upon yourself. Cooperate honestly with the investigation to minimize the damage as soon as possible." Evan, his mind was in chaos, and he was too stunned to respond. Gabriel raised his hand and signaled, "Take him away." Barbara remained silent for a long time after hearing this. "Mrs. Chapman, does she know about this?" Gabriel shook his head. "Mrs. Chapman is away on a mission and won't be back for a month." Evan knew Callista's past, and his whole spirit was drained. He didn't eat or drink for 2 days. Barbara, when she came to bring him food, she found him sitting on the bed with a look of profound sorrow and desolation in his eyes. "Barbara, how did you get here?" Evan's eyes lit up with a glimmer of hope the moment he saw her. Barbara laid out the dishes: spicy chicken, mapo tofu, and pork rib corn soup, all his favorite foods. Evan nearly brought to tears by the familiar aroma. "Essentially, you were deceived by others, and you'll be released before long." Barbara comforted. Evan understood in his heart, but he also knew that his life was essentially ruined. Barbara looked at him and couldn't help but encourage. "Evan, even if you can't stay here. You still have other options. Only when a person dies is there truly nothing left. Evan could no longer hold back, hot tears streaming from his eyes. The salty, bitter drops fell into his rice bowl, but he didn't pause for even a moment, shoveling large mouthfuls of rice into his mouth. Thank you, Barbara. The case not only affected Evan, but also impacted Clay, Span. Because of this, he failed to pass the political background check, Clay. When Clay heard the news, he nearly broke down completely and almost jumped into the river. It was only because his teacher stopped him in time that a tragedy was avoided. He walked home soaked to the bone, countless pairs of eyes curiously scrutinizing him along the way. Those gazes felt like fire, burning away the facade he had been desperately holding onto. His steps grew increasingly hurried, and only after he slammed the door shut and locked it behind him did he helplessly crouch on the floor and burst into tears. Clay, why are you crying so sadly? In his dazed state, he seemed to hear a familiar, gentle voice. Barbara carried over steaming hot dishes and called out to him with a smile. Stop crying. Didn't your brother say that real men shed blood, not tears? Wipe your face quickly and come eat. Barbara reached out her hand to him. He stared blankly, trying to grasp it, but clutched at empty air. Coming back to his senses, the house was dark and cold. There was no food, and no Barbara. Clay scrambled back to his room and dug out that photo, staring obsessively and infatuatedly at the face in it. As long as I bring Barbara home, everything will go back to normal. Our family will definitely be together forever. Gabriel returned from work to Herman's house, and as soon as he entered, he was greeted by the warm, enticing aroma. In the kitchen, Barbara was busy cooking. He walked over and quietly embraced her from behind. What delicious food are you making? You're back. Barbara turned her head and pressed her cheek against his. You and Dad have been so busy lately, so I made some chicken soup to nourish you, and the steamed ribs you wanted to eat yesterday. Gabriel felt the chill of early spring completely melt away with those words, a warm current spreading from his heart. How wonderful it would be to marry you. Barbara paused for a moment, then a blush appeared on her cheeks. Smooth talker. Gabriel looked at her with eyes full of affection. Barbara, let's get married properly. A week later, everyone in the National Security Agency knew that Mr. Herman's family had a joyous occasion. His own daughter and the promising young talent he had his eye on were finally united as lovers, which made the usually stern Jeffrey unable to hide his joy at the office, inviting everyone he met to the engagement party. Meanwhile, the two involved were constantly teased by their colleagues. On one occasion, when Gabriel went to the police station on official business, he was surrounded even before stepping through the door. Hey, isn't this the groom-to-be, here to pick up your bride? Quick, call Barbara out. Tell her her sweetheart is here for a date. When is the wedding? Everyone is waiting to have your wedding candies. As she spoke, Barbara was also ushered out and stood together with Gabriel in the center of the crowd. A perfect match between a talented man and a beautiful woman. Kiss. Kiss. Barbara blushed crimson, pulling her colleague's arm to stop their teasing. Gabriel wrapped his arm around her waist instead and boldly kissed her lips. Everyone, wait for our wedding invitations. We hope you'll all attend. Barbara couldn't help but laugh, her eyes filled with tender affection as she gazed at him. This sweet scene was completely witnessed by Clay, who had just arrived in City K covered in travel dust. Intense jealousy and unease made him clench his fists tightly, glaring fiercely at Gabriel. It was all because he had taken Barbara away. If it weren't for Gabriel, how could he and his elder brother have ended up in such a state? He absolutely could not let Gabriel marry Barbara, due to Jeffrey's urging. The organization quickly approved their marriage application. When he got the red marriage certificate, Gabriel excitedly picked Barbara up and spun her around several times. Barbara, I finally married you and brought you home. Barbara hugged him, her heart filled with overwhelming excitement and joy. A year ago, she could never have imagined that there would be someone in this lifetime who would love her so deeply and be willing to build a happy little family with her. And now, she not only found a father who loves her dearly, but also a husband who adores her. Gabriel took out an exquisite small box from his pocket and knelt down on one knee. Gabriel smiled and said, Barbara, in the movies, they say that if you want to marry the girl you love, you have to propose first. He opened the small box, revealing a ring that sparkled with a dazzling light. The design on it was a small moon, corresponding to Barbara's name. In other countries, diamonds represent eternal love. Barbara, I hope to love you for a lifetime and grow old with you. Will you marry me? Barbara's tears welled up in her eyes as she choked out, I do. Gabriel helped her put on the ring. Silly girl, why are you crying? You should be happy. Barbara smiled through her tears. The couple's wedding is scheduled for early next month. Gabriel used all his savings to book the venue and buy the wedding dress, while a continuous stream of betrothal gifts flowed through the gates of the Herman family home. The day before the wedding, Gabriel drove Barbara to the cemetery. Gabriel's parents and Barbara's mother had all been relocated and buried there. And the couple came specifically to share their joyful news with their elders. Gabriel poured ceremonial wine on the ground. "Mom, Dad, it's fortunate that you had such foresight to arrange for me such a wonderful wife in Barbara. I am eternally grateful." Barbara listened to his words and gently stroked her mother's photo. Those loving eyes with a smile fell upon Barbara. "Mom, I'm about to marry the man of my dreams. You'd be happy for me up in heaven, wouldn't you?" In a daze. She seemed to truly see Mother Fang looking at them with deep emotion, urging them to live well together and soon have a chubby grandson. It wasn't until evening that the two of them emerged from the cemetery. Gabriel drove, telling Barbara to get some sleep first, and that he'd wake her when they got home. Barbara shook her head. "I'm not tired, I'll keep you company. It feels like a dream." Barbara leaned over and kissed his cheek. "How about now, still feel like a dream?" Gabriel curled his eyes and was about to speak when a small car suddenly rushed out from the side road. In the fleeting flash of light, Barbara clearly saw Clay's ferocious face. Bang! Barbara hadn't even reacted yet when she was tightly shielded in Gabriel's embrace. As the car was hit and flipped sideways for several meters, "Call the police quickly. So much blood. Saving lives is the priority. Quickly pull everyone out of the car," dizzy and disoriented. Barbara was carried out by a kind-hearted person, but Gabriel, who had taken the impact for her, lay motionless in the car. The wound on his head was bleeding profusely, a horrifying sight. Barbara struggled to crawl over. "Gabriel, no, please wake up." But no matter how many times she called his name, he showed no response. Overwhelmed by immense despair and sorrow, Barbara reached out desperately to grab Gabriel, pleading, "Don't leave me, Gabriel." Just a few movements had already drained all her strength, and Barbara fainted right beside Gabriel. The perpetrator of the malicious car accident, Clay, didn't survive long enough for the doctors to arrive and passed away. His body lay in the morgue for 10 days before being claimed by Evan, who had just been released from prison. That day in City K, a drizzling rain fell as he walked into Gabriel's hospital room. Gazing at the slender figure, he asked, "Barbara, are you okay?" Under Gabriel's protection, Barbara only suffered minor injuries, but Gabriel himself was rushed into the operating room 5 times in just 10 days due to multiple kidney ruptures and massive bleeding. Critical condition notices were handed to Barbara one after another. She lifted her head, her eyes devoid of hatred or sorrow, as if only an empty shell sat before Evan. "I don't want to see you." Now, the one responsible for Gabriel's coma was dead, yet she couldn't help but transfer her anger. "I know, Barbara, I just want to say sorry on his behalf." Evan spoke with difficulty, each word tugging at his trembling heart. Barbara looked at Gabriel's sleeping face. "I won't forgive him, not now, not for all eternity." Evan walked out of the hospital holding the urn, the drizzle soaking his hair and clothes, yet he continued forward as if feeling nothing, as if he would walk to the ends of the earth. Barbara took a long leave to stay at the hospital and care for Gabriel, holding his hand and telling him stories of their childhood adventures. When he was a child, Gabriel was very mischievous and always wore out his pants, so Mother Shan simply let him run from one end of the village to the other wearing open-crotch pants. Back then, everyone in the village had seen Gabriel's bottom, red from the cold. The village children used this to tease Barbara, and Barbara, in a fit of anger, said to Gabriel, "Gabriel, if you don't start wearing your pants properly, I won't marry you to be your wife." Gabriel trembled his eyelashes, slowly opened his eyes, and continued, "Every time you threatened me with that, I didn't dare disobey. From that day on, I started wearing my pants properly." Barbara was stunned, her tears reacted faster than her mind, falling pitter-patter. She tightly held Gabriel's hand, crying uncontrollably, "Gabriel, if you don't wake up soon, I won't marry you anymore." Gabriel looked at her with heartache, hating that he couldn't get up and hold her in his arms. "Well, I know, so I woke up to marry you." After waking from his coma, Gabriel's health improved visibly. Within half a month he was already able to sit up and read books. Barbara also returned to work at the Public Security Bureau, only coming by at noon and in the evening with prepared soup. Gabriel now had the energy to joke, saying that her daily consumption of chicken soup made it seem like she was in postpartum confinement. Coincidentally, a colleague from the Public Security Bureau was present and remarked, "You have no idea. During those days when you were still in critical condition, Barbara didn't sleep a wink, afraid that if she closed her eyes, she would hear news that your heart had stopped. Barbara recalled those heart-stopping days, and her eyes couldn't help but lower. Gabriel holding her hand, his eyes filled with heartache and self-blame. He said, "I made you worry." Barbara shook her head. If it hadn't been for Gabriel risking his own life to save her back then, she would be the one lying in the hospital bed now. "It's me who should thank you, Gabriel." Gabriel interlaced his fingers with hers. "Barbara, ever since that flood in our childhood swept you away from my grasp, I swore that if I could find you, I would never let go of your hand again in this lifetime. So even if I were to descend to the underworld, I would struggle to climb back to your side." Gabriel was discharged from the hospital in the middle of summer. University A added a forensic science program and invited Barbara to be a guest lecturer, requiring her to teach 3 classes per week. Gabriel went to pick her up at the entrance of University A. Standing out conspicuously among the coming and going students, finally, the bell for the end of class rang. Barbara was surrounded by students as she walked out, the gentle sunlight falling on her, so dazzling it was hard to look away. Barbara was talking to a student, but when she heard Gabriel call her, she instinctively smiled. "Gabriel, you're here." Both of them had exceptionally good looks, and the students found the sight quite pleasing to the eye. "Barbara, when are you and Gabriel getting married?" Barbara blinked, unsure how to respond. Their original wedding had to be cancelled due to an unexpected incident. Now, half a year had passed, and they still didn't know whether to hold it again. Gabriel chuckled softly and magically produced several packs of wedding candies and invitations. "Look, what are these?" The students clamored excitedly. "Barbara, Gabriel, we'll definitely come to send our blessings." Barbara's face showed no less surprise than the students. "What's going on?" Gabriel raised an eyebrow. "Of course we're holding our wedding. When did you secretly prepare all this? You kept it so well hidden." Barbara tapped his chest, pretending to interrogate him. "Confess and you'll be lenient. Resist and you'll be punished severely." Gabriel cooperatively raised both hands. "All right, Barbara, I surrender." It turned out that even before Gabriel was discharged from the hospital, he had already started preparing for the wedding. He felt sorry for Barbara running between the hospital and the police station, so he didn't deliberately tell her, wanting to give her a surprise. After a long time, Barbara finally put on that pure white wedding dress. Gabriel gave her the grandest wedding and the most magnificent ceremony. That day, as the wedding procession traveled down the road, crowds of onlookers lined both sides, amid the shower of wedding candies. Barbara heard countless heartfelt wishes of happy marriage and "may you have a son soon." When the wedding car stopped at the entrance of the hotel, Barbara stepped onto the carpet in her red high heels, and Jeffrey stepped forward to escort her for the final stretch of the journey. Meanwhile, Gabriel stood waiting for her arrival. Bathed in the spotlight of everyone's attention, Jeffrey placed Barbara's hand into Gabriel's and said, "Gabriel, you are the junior I'm most proud of. My daughter has suffered a lot, and now I entrust her to you. You must treat her well, love her, and never mistreat her." Barbara wanted to smile, but tears uncontrollably streamed down her cheeks. "Dad, don't worry, I've been preparing for a very, very long time to become Barbara's husband," Gabriel said earnestly. Amid everyone's blessings, Barbara and Gabriel drank the ceremonial wedding wine. "Barbara, I love you." Barbara looked back into his eyes. "I love you too, Gabriel." 5 years later, "Mom, get up quickly. Dad made your favorite pumpkin pancakes." The bedroom door was pushed open, and a chubby little figure rushed to Barbara's bedside. Barbara, unable to stand the noise any longer, sat up and pulled her into her arms, but the moment she saw those eyes, almost identical to Gabriel's, all her anger melted away. She kissed her daughter on the cheek. "Clara, good morning." Clara giggled and kissed her back. "Good morning, Mommy." "But Daddy said if you don't get up now, you'll be late for the meeting." Barbara stiffened, immediately put her daughter down, and got up to wash up. After finally making it to the dining room, Gabriel and Clara were already eating, and a cup of hot milk was sitting on the empty seat. Barbara walked over with practiced ease and gave Gabriel a good morning kiss, only to be pulled in by Gabriel and kissed on the lips. Clara covered her eyes with her chubby little hands. "Mom and Dad have no shame." "I'm going to tell Grandpa." Barbara pinched her cheek. "Such a little know-it-all. Hurry up and eat your breakfast so Mom and Dad can take you to kindergarten. I want to go to school." Ever since Mr. Wilson retired, Barbara has become the backbone of the forensic department at the City K Public Security Bureau. Whenever there's an external support mission, she's the first one assigned. Now, there's another case in Southwest City. Barbara, no matter how reluctant she is to set foot there, must prioritize her work, but she never expected that the victim in this case would be an old acquaintance of hers. Barbara was seeing Evan from this perspective for the first time. In just 5 short years, he had become so unfamiliar. A month ago, the police had located a criminal hideout. To avoid alerting the suspects, they decided to plant an undercover agent first. Relying on his past connections, Evan volunteered himself before the police chief. Throughout the month-long mission, he upheld the qualities of a soldier and performed exceptionally well. However, at the very last moment, in order to save a comrade, his identity was exposed, leading to a frenzied retaliation from those desperate outlaws. He maintained the backbone of a soldier until the very end, never showing the slightest hint of weakness. Barbara was deeply moved after hearing this. No matter what past grievances she had with Evan, she had to admit that Evan was a qualified soldier. She took a step back, bowed slightly towards Evan on the operating table, and then began the dissection. With her meticulousness and professionalism, she successfully uncovered a crucial clue, which greatly aided the police in pursuing the fugitive criminals. After work, Barbara somehow found herself wandering to the doorstep of the Chapman residence. This house, where she had once lived for 5 years, was now in a state of utter decay. She gently pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was filled with dust and cobwebs, and all the furnishings remained exactly as she had left them. She walked into the master bedroom and saw a letter left on the table. The envelope was neatly addressed to Barbara. Barbara picked it up in disbelief. The few short sentences inside had been revised 3 or 4 times, ending with the words, "Barbara, may you be happy forever." Barbara knew this was the closest match he could find. "Thank you, Evan." Barbara didn't return to City K until after Evan's burial. She left that ring in Evan's ashes urn, not taking it back with her. The past grievances vanished with the departures of Callista, Clay, and Evan, and she completely let go of the past. The moment she stepped out of the train station, a chubby child shot into her arms like a little cannonball. "Mommy, I missed you so much." Barbara held her tightly. Gabriel followed closely behind, picking up her luggage for her. "Barbara, I heard about Evan." Barbara looked at him and smiled. "Don't worry, I'm fine." Gabriel, seeing her expression was normal, he pinched her cheek and led his wife and daughter home. Another spring has arrived. Barbara held Gabriel's hand with one hand and Clara's with the other. Feeling that time was leisurely and life was peaceful, she thought tomorrow would be a fine day too. The end.